ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula leading a delegation at the Electoral Court in the city this morning. The governing party is seeking to have uMkhonto weSizwe's registration with the Electoral Commission declared unlawful and invalid. But let's get more with Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda and Ngcobo. Ziyanda, good morning. Bring us up to speed.
Well, Iman, no love lost then between the MKP and the ANC. You can see Dalimpofu greeting the ANC Deputy Secretary General Nomvula Mokonyane. Dalimpofu Moses Kakane will be representing uMkhonto weSizwe party in the ANC's case against both MKP and the IEC, Iman, where they're saying that the IEC's acceptance, in particular the Deputy CEO, allowing for a supplementary application despite having initially rejected the registration of uMkhonto weSizwe, should be declared unlawful and invalid. The scope is going to be narrowed. It's about Section 15 of the Electoral Commission Act, and looking at whether or not supplementaries are allowed. The IEC is saying Section 15(1) does allow for this. The ANC is saying that cannot be correct. The IEC will argue that the ANC has jumped the gun in essence. One, because the ANC initially contended with the use of the logo and the emblem of uMkhonto weSizwe, but they've never fought against the issue of the actual registration of the party. Let's bring in a spokesperson, Mahlengi Bhengu-Motsiri, to talk about this, because even on the issue of urgency, both the IEC and MKP, in particular uMkhonto weSizwe, they're saying, but you're disingenuous because you knew about the existence of this party in September, but it's only when your former president, Jacob Zuma, who's also going to be in court here today, until he threw his weight behind MKP, did you then jump?
That is absolutely not correct. We are here because we want to exhaust all the legal avenues available to any South African and to any South African entity. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this court challenge. There's nothing wrong with this appeal. There's nothing wrong with the ANC coming to the Electoral Court. The Electoral Court exists exactly for that reason. And so, yes, we are proceeding today. We're exhausting our rights, restorative justice, precisely because uMkhonto weSizwe is in our DNA. uMkhonto weSizwe runs through our veins. uMkhonto weSizwe is in our blood. Many people fell on the battlefield in the name of uMkhonto weSizwe. We owe it to them, and we owe it to justice to exhaust matters, including in the Electoral Court. Of course, as we proceed also to KZN on matters of patenting. Yes.
And there's going to be a constitutional argument, which I find quite interesting, about if this electoral court rules in favor of the ANC. There's a debate about, well, what happens then to the rights of the voters and supporters, especially those who would have given their signatures in support of uMkhonto weSizwe? What's the ANC's response to this?
Well, the ANC has got a responsibility and a historical mission to protect and defend its heritage. What happens to those voters, I suppose that is something that you need to direct to the MK party. But from where the ANC stands at this moment in time, in history, we've got an obligation to defend the legacy of the ANC. uMkhonto weSizwe is the legacy of the ANC, is a heritage product, heritage asset of the ANC. We would like all our people, including those that have signed up with uMkhonto weSizwe party, to be able to exercise their democratic right to vote. How that happens, surely it can't be on the basis of just one party.
And what does the ANC have to say about the courts, once again, inadvertently sometimes, most of the time actually, having to be an arbiter over issues that have to do with a failure of political management? So this very uMkhonto weSizwe party is being supported by a former ANC president. Political solutions seem to be failing constantly. Your views?
Well, I suppose, on that matter, you would know, Ziyanda, that the horse has bolted. There is no way you can get into a negotiation with somebody that steals what belongs to the ANC. I'm not certain that political management is an option in this case. Ideally, political management must always be involved in a mature democracy. And I suppose we do that a lot as the African National Congress on matters where we need to engage with opposition parties. I could talk about coalitions. I could talk about the coalitions conference that was convened by the ANC-led government, because negotiation is something that we know all too well. But otherwise, this country would have been on bloodshed if it were not for several compromises that were made by the ANC when it had the high moral standing at a time in the early 90s, coming back into the country. Moral standing to actually go it alone. But we sought to put in place the government of national unity. We sought to drive the CODESA process. So negotiations is something that the ANC is well known for. But in this instance, we're dealing with Jacob Zuma, who has sought to take what does not belong to him as a person, that belongs to the legacy of the African National Congress.
I wonder then whether or not political maturity will prevail as we go into the 29th of May polls. Iman, certainly in the courtroom today, it will be a battlefield, but I can tell you that outside as well, it seems that two different stages are being set up for after today's proceedings, one for uMkhonto weSizwe Party and the African National Congress.
So it's the battle of the names and also, the battle of the parties after court. That promises to be, I think, very, very interesting to watch, Ziyanda, especially when we look at the results of some of the latest polling, which places, the MKP with a, significant showing in its maiden electoral bid if it has and succeeds in the Electoral Court. But watch this through your eyes. You let us know the latest. Ziyanda and Ngcobo, thank you very much. Live for us from Bloemfontein and the Electoral Court.